right, sweet man. Why don't you, tell me a little bit about yourself and what company you're with, and we'll kind of start from there.
Yeah, my name is Garrett Morris from Sichuan Kitchen SLO. I grew up in Los Angeles, but I went to Cal Poly, studied nutrition, and really interested in food. I wanted to study abroad, and I ended up studying in Sichuan. I fell upon the program in China. There was one in Shanghai and one in Chengdu.
Uh-huh.
And I never heard of Chengdu, so that's where I went.
That was the place you want to go, huh?
Yeah, so that sounds cool. And I almost went to Thailand because I love Thai food.
Yeah.
But my parents suggested to go to China, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So I went, and I just loved it. I really fell in love with the people, the food, the culture. Eventually, a woman, but
Yeah,
that
of
was
course.
on a different trip.
Right.
But I was there just for 3 months. But I feel like those 3 months were some of the kind of longest or most substantial memories I still have. But I came back to Cal Poly, finished my nutrition degree, and I also did a lot of more culinary classes, or like it was lab assistant for the advanced culinary class and stuff like that. So that was kind of my more formal cooking background. But then I graduated and went to the Peace Corps in Nepal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I was in Nepal for 2 years, and then I extended a third year. So 2 years in the far west, small village. We were doing food security work. So my even though I studied nutrition, I just felt like that wasn't really the need where I was. So I started doing more fruit trees, and we were teaching them how to graft and planting and improve varieties.
Oh, okay. Did you learn that at Cal Poly too?
No, I just pretty much knew nothing about agriculture.
Oh.
I was really into kind of real food, and I was on the Fair Trade Club, so I kind of was more like international food inequity. But I was interested in it. I just didn't really have the opportunity. But being in the Peace Corps, you're living with farmers.
Yeah.
And so the Peace Corps had a lot of trainings for us. So I kind of taught what I could, and then kind of had this vision and brought the idea to them. And those that liked it, they kind of took with it. And those were the farmers I worked with. And then we would have local Nepali people who were more masters of grafting, and
okay. They knew.
Yeah, they would came to teach the farmers where I was. So I wrote a small grant in the Peace Corps and had them come teach, and we took our farmers to the trainings, and
Nice.
So
how is it living in Nepal? Like how, and how is that like for you as an American? Like, I'm assuming you didn't speak the language. Maybe you knew a little bit, but if you came back, like, did you have to have an interpreter or something like that, or how did that work?
Yeah, no. Well, the Peace Corps is pretty adamant about learning the language.
Oh, okay.
There's some older volunteers who have a little harder time, and they won't kick you out if you can't speak.
Yeah.
But there's like a language requirement that you have to meet after the training. You have 3 months of training in the country. So, and at that time, you're pretty good at conversing, and then 2 years in a village, no one speaks English. You get pretty good. So pretty fluent now, and I still talk with friends over there, so I keep it up a little bit.
Oh, that's really cool.
So, but I, living in Nepal could be its own podcast. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, we could talk a little bit about it. That's fine.
Yeah, sure. No, I think it really changed who I am, and the people there in Nepal are really awesome and friendly, and once you get to know any kind of small living community, you understand all the drama and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have this envisionment that village life is this beautiful, pure thing.
Yeah.
And, there's definitely aspects to it, but there's also
a lot of drama.
And people doing crazy stuff. But especially as a foreigner there, you're kind of you're treated in a different way.
Yes.
In Hindu culture, most of Nepal is Hindu,
Okay.
and in that culture, and Buddhist culture too. Kind of guests are highly regarded. Guests are gods is kind of what they say. So
you're like, this is great. I'm coming in. I'm a god. No.
Yeah. Sorry, you're not. Especially if you've been there a long time, you kind of lose your godliness.
A little bit, yeah.
But you're still you're not as subject to the same restraints as they might be. And being a foreigner there, you always have the option of going home.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Right.
Where the people there, they have a lot of beautiful things about where they live, and that was actually one of the things I would tell people. Nowadays with media and watching TV and all that, everyone wants to. A lot of people there want to come to the United States or travel.
Oh, from Nepal.
Yeah, they see Hollywood and like, oh my gosh, it's heaven.
Yeah,
And
you're
it's
like, you had no idea.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
that was one of the things, trying to explain. Yeah, it's cool, but it's hard. You have to work really hard. You actually have a lot of beautiful things here in Nepal.
Yeah.
Appreciate that was kind of one of the messages that I would often get, because people always like, oh, the government gives you all this money in America, and they have a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah, I was like, what
About-
government money? I'm like, wait.
Yeah,
But
so trying to bring those down to reality,
Yeah.
and bring up the things that they have there. But
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it was a little bit of a tangent. But.
No, it's fine. So how would you say that it changed you? You said it like really kind of influenced, your life going forward from being in Nepal.
Yeah, so kind of just with a lot of problems we have here aren't really that big of problems, and
Yeah.
you see how people deal with much severer problems
Yeah.
there, and how they just kind of move through it with ease. I think this idea of impermanence, it's not really talked about there, but you just get the people there just get it, because they're used to death and things being lost, and their worries are a little more substantial, I would suppose. Like
Sure.
the harvest didn't come out well, like we're gonna be not hungry, but it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Whereas we might be worrying about something a little more superficial. So just kind of having that perspective, and I think just for me, the village life was really, I really appreciated that, and just kind of a little slower paced. People there don't really go off of time on a watch. They kind of just, you could have a meeting for 10 o'clock, but people are going to show up when they finish their chores and they can come. So usually it's a couple hours later. So it's like, yeah, just that kind of, more going with the flow
Kind of thing,
attitude.
yeah.
And I really appreciated that, and kind of, you have to fit into the way that things work here, but just having that mindset kind of moves you through life with a little bit of less stress and ease.
Right. But you can't really like show up 2 hours late here.
No, that's what I'm saying. So
exactly.
You got to kind of adapt to where you are, but having the mindset, I think, helps you a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So did you has like the religion over there, like you said, Hindu or Buddhism, really influenced kind of your worldview now here?
Yeah,
A little bit.
Yeah, not so much the religion. I mean, it was hard to separate religion from just kind of cultural practices of the people.
Right.
Especially like the younger people, they're not, I connect with a lot of different age groups, but they're not really super religious, but they still have all these cultural practices that they grew up with, and
that's kind of embedded into their culture, right? Like,
yeah. So I don't, when I went into the Peace Corps and going to Nepal, I was just completely open-minded. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll come back in a robe, or I don't even know what they wear, but maybe I'm just gonna be like that. So I was really open-minded to accept, what they had to offer. I'm not Hindu now.
Yeah, right. No,
anything,
I didn't think you were, but I mean, you could have been. It's all
yeah,
good.
no, it's totally. I kind of just took away way more of the mindset and than the religion or anything like that.
Yeah. So when I was in LA, I worked for a Korean photographer, and so we were like the Asian photography like business, like the number one. And so we did a lot of Buddhist weddings, Hindu weddings. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, this is so wild and fun, and like it's more than one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just super fascinating because, like you said, it's like all kind of embedded into their culture, whether or not they're like severely practicing or not. It's all just kind of together.
Yeah.
So, so when you were in Nepal, did you start, cooking there as well?
Oh yeah. So I still, ever since I'd been to Sichuan for those 3 months studying abroad, I was cooking for friends and family whenever I traveled. Try to have a couple of the main spices I needed with me.
Yeah.
And then in Nepal too, I was kind of cooking a little bit of Sichuan food for my family every once in a while. Let me think. So Sichuan is actually not too far from Nepal geographically, and it's kind of the biggest population hub closest to Nepal. So there's actually a good amount of Sichuan people in Nepal.
So they're kind of used to that cooking, kind of, maybe?
Well, not in the village, but
No.
in the cities, it's
In the
pretty
cities,
common
okay.
to see a Sichuan restaurant, especially Kathmandu and Pokhara.
Yeah.
or a little more, touristy places you'll find tourists. So the spices were available, and I would bring back some of the stuff. And, the Sichuan peppercorn, which
we got some here.
Yeah, I'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But that is also from Nepal too. It's a slightly different variety, not as potent, but they still got that numbing sensation, and they use it a lot in different chutneys and things. So the flavors are pretty familiar with them. Cuisine is quite different. So Nepali cuisine, in a nutshell, I think we're used to thinking of Nepal as the Himalayas, which is definitely a part of it, but it's actually just the northern sliver and relatively not as populated because it's high mountain Himalaya.
Yeah.
Most of Nepal is the foothills, so these kind of rolling, quite steep and dramatic, but rolling hills leading up to the Himalayas. That's where most people lived and traditionally lived. And then there's the southern sliver is called the Tarai, and it's more hot and humid. It's flat, and it's more like kind of like northern India.
Okay.
Northeast. So it's a lot of people are moving down there these days because the terrain is easier to move and its farming's easier. And the mountains are relatively difficult, but the weather is better. It's more subtropical, so you can grow, in the area I lived, in the low valleys, they're growing mangoes, and then on the top of the hill, they're growing apples. It was like everything in between, citrus and walnuts. So it was fun working with the fruit trees there because there's so much variety. But the cuisine in the Himalaya region, it's a little more like Tibet, potatoes, not a lot of veggies grow there, a lot more meat. But in the middle hills and the south, it's more like kind of what we would say Indian food. So a lot of the same.
Like curries and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So in general, less spiced. And I think like most of the Indian food we have here, even internationally, is kind of like what we call from the Punjab region. So like tikka masala, these kind of heavier curries.
Yeah.
And most Nepalis weren't super fond of that. It's like too much.
Is it too rich for them?
Too rich, too many spices, like the same spices, cumin, coriander, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Nepalis use a smaller amount, whereas they're like kind of, but that, I wouldn't want to say that's Indian cuisine because that's a whole nother, a lot of foods in India.
Yeah.
But the kind of classic international Indian cuisine wasn't super liked in Nepal. It's common, and it was actually really good going to Kathmandu and getting Indian food. But in the village, they're much more simple. It's kind of, actually, I traveled only 2 weeks in India, but in my experience, almost everything in India and kind of the middle hills south of Nepal, they're like identical, but in India, it's just multiplied times 10. It's more intense. So the religion's more intense, the food's more intense.
Yeah.
Poverty is more intense.
Yeah,
wealth
definitely,
is more.
right.
Everything is more intense.
Yeah.
So the food is kind of similar. It's just toned down a little bit, and it's still very spicy and it's very good. I love the food, and especially in the villages of Nepal where there's all these interesting foraged ingredients and locally grown food. But in general, it's not as like heavy and spiced.
Okay. So what kind of dishes are they making, and what kind of like protein are they using? Are they using like lamb, like a lot of lamb, or beef? Or...
Yeah. So the kind of the highest level, if you're having a party, you have a goat.
Yeah.
It's kind of like everyone's kind of number one, but it's more expensive and a little more not as available. So more commonly, you'd have chicken.
Okay.
Most people have their own chickens, or one of the kind of income projects for even small villages is you build this little like shack of a shed and you just raise the broiler chickens, the 40-day chickens.
Yeah.
So they buy the chicks and buy the feed, and then that's it wasn't. I preferred to promote like local chicken because it's more organic.
Right.
But it's good. It's good protein for people who were lacking that. The broiler chickens, and it's good income for them too, even in a small little village. Yeah, so they'd sell it to the village. So that was a little more common. And then some castes and some groups ate pork. So,
right. Because sometimes they don't, like beef and pork is sometimes yes and sometimes no, kind of with some of those cultures, right? So.
Yeah. So beef is pretty much always no.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, but some places in India or things like that, I actually think legally it's not allowed, but you'll see it, or sometimes so water buffalo is very common and allowed, and sometimes you're like, well, you don't really know exactly what it is. It's hard to tell water buffalo to beef, but mostly Water buffalo it was common, but there's the whole Hindu and the caste system.
Yeah.
There's different castes that was okay, or some people just feel more religious, so maybe they stay away from pork and beef.
Yeah.
The younger generation usually doesn't care as much. They still wouldn't eat pork or buffalo. They still won't eat beef.
But they'll go for the water buffalo.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that
buffalo.
more abundant there too? Like as far as that versus cattle?
Yeah. It's probably about this half and half. It depends on the region too.
Yeah.
I think certain breeds of cow and buffalo do better in certain climates.
Okay.
But the buffalo milk is a huge thing
Yep.
there. So that's also a big protein source. And they both have good milk production. Water buffalo is a little more, where we were, is a little more prized. There's fattier milk, and they produce a lot more milk, but they're also a lot harder to take care of as far as they're big. They eat a lot.
Yeah,
so you
definitely.
have to feed them a lot.
Yeah.
But the milk was super good.
It was
super
really
rich,
good.
Yeah.
Are they making cheese out of that at all?
Not Nepal doesn't make a lot of cheese. Yeah, so just mostly drinking it.
Drinking milk, yeah.
There was and yogurt.
Oh yeah.
And then they make the butter and
Butter. Okay.
ghee.
Ghee. Yeah.
Ghee is Hindi. Ghee is the Nepali word. So they make that.
But it's the same thing.
Same thing.
Okay.
So most everyone's homes makes that, and then you get the buttermilk, and everyone drinks the buttermilk. It's a nice thing to share.
Nice. So how is it cooking for that kind of different culture? I mean, you said, like, you kind of touched on it a little bit, like you were in Sichuan. Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sichuan.
So first, where is that geographically? First.
In China.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine China, it kind of looks like a chicken. That's what people say.
Okay.
Rooster. So the northeast is the kind of the head.
Yeah.
And then the body and the tail is to the west. And then so Sichuan's right in the stomach.
In the stomach of the
Stomach
okay.
of the chicken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you were were you cooking that kind of cuisine in Nepal?
Just for my host family
For
every
host
once
family.
in a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd go to Kathmandu for a Peace Corps thing, and I'd find some Sichuan peppercorn, or we had that, but the chili bean paste, and and I'd cook some dishes.
And what do they think?
They liked it, yeah.
Yeah?
So China, some dishes have a little bit of sugar in it. In
Yeah.
Nepal, they don't like sugar with their meal. They love sweets, and they eat really sweet sweets, but they don't like it with their dal bhat, their rice and lentils. They kind of like that.
Okay.
Not sweet.
Like savory.
So that was the one thing they were like, it would be great, but just don't put sugar in it. But they like that, like spicy.
Yeah.
Of course, it's good food. It's popular everywhere, so they liked it too.
Yeah. Okay. So so let's get into that too. So I read on your website it's Sichuan and
Yeah.
Sichuan.
Yeah.
So what is the deal with that?
Yeah. So Chinese wasn't officially Romanized, or they didn't kind of accept it, find this ideal Romanization until the 1980s.
Okay.
And when they took it, the government kind of accepted that, it's called pinyin, and it kind of came from actually trying to figure out how to type in Chinese, because at one point they had like 3,000. Every character had a number, and had to memorize like what number was what character, and that wasn't very efficient. So anyway, they finally found this Romanization that worked well, called pinyin.
Okay.
But before that, when you're writing a Chinese character or sound into English, it was just phonetic.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the SEZ Sichuan came from. But pinyin, it's Sichuan, Sichuan. So actually that's two characters. Sichuan is the name of the province. There's two characters, Si and Chuan.
Yeah.
And Si means four,
Okay.
and Chuan means river.
Mm.
So the province means four rivers.
Yeah.
There's four main rivers. There's another somewhat popular, or less popular, but kind of maybe more accurate reason why they called it that. But I kind of forgot that story.
No, that's fine.
But anyway,
Yeah,
four rivers. And yeah, Si,
Yeah.
and Chuan, Chuan.
But so basically what happened is they just like couldn't translate it, and so it's kind of been ubiquitous here, right, with the SZ.
Yeah, so that's like when the first people from Sichuan started coming over, and Sichuan food became popular here. That was before like pinyin was kind of standardized, so they would do it more phonetically with the Sichuan SZ.
Sichuan.
Yeah, but kind of technically Sichuan is the better way.
It's the better way to say
it and spell it.
Gotcha. Okay. So then let's kind of talk about the peppercorns then, since we're talking
Sure.
about that. So, where do they come from? And let's start with that.
Yeah, so they've been grown in China and Sichuan specifically for a long time, for millennia. Very medicinal. It's not spicy at all. It's not part of the chili pepper family. It's actually in the citrus family. So, and it's so they call it a peppercorn because it kind of looks like one.
Yeah.
But it's not in the black pepper family or the chili pepper. And you actually so it's this fruiting body of the citrus tree, and it has a special compound in there called sanshu, which kind of has this interesting tingly, numbing sensation on the palate. So medicinally, and then it's a whole area there of Chinese medicine. Every kind of the food is very important in Chinese medicine, and of herbs, of course.
Yeah.
So this has certain properties in that regards
For medicinally purposes.
Yeah.
And so did they kind of, I mean, maybe this isn't true, but like, did they kind of form their cooking around kind of like this peppercorn kind of like, because like it seems to be like this is kind of in a lot of dishes.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if the cuisine formed around the peppercorn because it's so the whole cuisine is very complex.
Yeah.
And there's so much influence, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a big part of it.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of the cuisine.
Yeah. No, I use it quite a bit. I have some, and it's just like you said, like that sensation. It's kind of hard to describe, like if you haven't really cooked with it.
Yeah.
But we'll do some chicken wings with it with some five spice. Oh
Yeah.
man, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's kind of part of the Sichuan five spice. It usually has some peppercorn in
Yeah.
there anyway. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then on your website, you were it mentions like mala, right? Mm-hmm. So how is that associated with the cuisine or Sichuan cooking in general?
Yeah. So ma means numbing from the peppercorn, or it's also the same word if like your leg falls asleep.
Oh,
and you
okay.
get that tingly.
Yeah.
So that's ma, and la is spicy. So this numbing spice is kind of the overarching flavor profile of Sichuan cuisine.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it. The chili pepper itself wasn't really introduced into China until it kind of came in the 1800s, but it used to be just like a very pretty decorative plant with all the flowers.
Yeah.
And when Mao came to power in the 1950s when it really started to take off in China. So the chili pepper is rather new in Sichuan or in China, but Sichuan really took to it. Mao was from Hunan, which is very close to Sichuan, so that area, the chili pepper grows really well, and they've always been known for a little more robust flavors, so it really fit into their cuisine, and it pairs really well with the peppercorn because it kind of the chili peppers are spicy and the peppercorn is kind of numbing, which kind of cuts the spice.
Yeah.
So that is mala. So and there's actually 8 kind of these more well recognized cuisines in China. Like Cantonese cuisine, kind of up. Most of them are along the coast, but there's 8 cuisines, and Sichuan is one, and they all have these 2 characters that describe them. So that's kind of Sichuan is mala.
Mala.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just pull the mic up just a little. It's kind of sinking down just a little bit. There you go. Okay, cool. So why don't you go through the 8 different types of cuisine there if we have time. I mean, briefly. We'll do it briefly.
Yeah. I haven't memorized all 8 of them, but I do know that, most of them, actually all 6 of them are along the coast, like from Beijing down to Guangzhou. And that most of them are kind of characterized as being a little bit lighter flavor. They all have their kind of unique flavors or ingredients that drive those flavors. Like, one area might be known for its pickles, so it's like sour.
Yeah.
Sourness is really important in that cuisine. And then Hunan and Sichuan are the 2 that are inland, and they're known for being a little more spicy and in-your-face flavors. But there's 8. If you read a textbook, it would talk about these 8, but China.
It's probably more than that.
Oh my god! I mean, it's
so many probably.
It's like a size of a continent, and cuisine-wise, it's a country of foodies. There's so much food, so many flavors. There's so many minority groups in China that all have their own cooking. So it's a shame, not a shame, but it's misleading to say just 8. But those are kind of the famous,
the main,
more defined ones.
Right.
Whereas a lot of the other ones are like, oh, this ethnic group makes this food, but it's not like, it's only maybe proportionally to the rest of China, it's quite small, but it's still real, very different than the other cuisines.
Gotcha. Okay, so if someone were at home to pick some of this stuff up, like what, like I mean I mentioned it earlier, but like what, how would you use it, like in general, right? Mm-hmm. Or just give me a couple examples of like how you can use it.
Yeah. So the peppercorns in Sichuan, they use them both ground and whole.
Right.
But you usually the flavor compounds are fat soluble, so you always want to cook them in oil first. Sometimes they'll sprinkle a little bit on the dish of the powder, but usually the peppercorn itself or the powder is kind of cooked in the oil while you're stir frying the dish. But also it's also actually water soluble too, because you can make a soup out of it. You can just throw it in with the soup, and it'll still kind of get some of that flavor. So thrown in with the stir fried, like maybe with the garlic, ginger, onions, thrown in there whole, or kind of if it was a powder, maybe a little bit later in the dish, or sometimes in like dressings. It's like a salad dressing. You can use a little bit.
Will you ground that up for the salad dressing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually, and I usually use it more ground than whole, just to kind of make it more of a backdrop. Then, if you bite one, when you're cooking with it, it can be a little overpowering.
Right.
Especially for people here.
Yeah. So do you need to? I mean, so say if you're like, what was I trying to say? Do you need, like, how like with like fennel or like some peppercorns or stuff like that you sometimes you have to heat it up like in the pan before
toasting it.
Exactly. Does that work with this as well?
Yeah, it's a good idea too, before you grind it. But I think if you're gonna cook it in oil, what I found is that kind of it's just helping release some of those flavor compounds.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna stir fry in oil, that's not as important because it's already gonna be happen in that stage.
But if you're like doing like a rub or something,
it's a good idea. But you got to be careful not to burn it, because it's pretty. You don't want those flavor compounds to burn off. So
gotcha.
Just a little toast, and then let it cool, and then grind it up. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I was looking at a cocktail recipe, and they said to grind that up with like a little bit of salt or pepper as like an Asian like kind of type tahini, and to rim the glass with like a cocktail.
Yeah.
Have you tried that at all or anything like that?
Yeah. So every Tuesday I go to Hotel SLO and do a pop up on the rooftop, and I work with some of the bartenders there that make the cocktails. So we've got one. Yeah, it's like a Sichuan margarita.
Yeah.
Something like that. So they do the tahini with the Sichuan peppercorn, and they rim it with that. Another one they do a lot of fat washed.
Oh, right.
So I'll whenever I make like a braised pork or beef, kind of scoop off some of the fat at the end, and so it's really flavorful. It's got it's like red with all the chili oils and the kind of 5 spice. And then I'll give that to them, and then they'll do a fat wash, and then they also take a Sichuan peppercorn and soak in alcohol and then extract.
Oh, cool.
That and then kind of make a cocktail from that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then you just made one here, but like you can make a chili oil with this too, right?
Yeah, it's part of the chili oil. It wouldn't be the only thing in there. But yeah, you throw it in the chili oil. It's really nice. Trying to think what else. Yeah, it's pretty much just kind of. It's not in every single dish in Sichuan, but it's definitely got its importance in cuisine. And,
Nice. Was there like any kind of Sichuan chefs that you're like, oh, that's the guy that like really kind of influenced my cooking from when I saw whatever he was doing to now?
Yeah. So I guess living in China, I was just super interested in it. And every time you go to a restaurant, we'd order, and I'd go in the back and watch the kitchen work and then taste the food and see how I liked it. And my wife is from Sichuan, so living there,
with her host family for a few months during kind of the spring festival time, cooking with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of just cooks and home cooks in China and Sichuan.
Which are always like the best cooks anyways.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's kind of the cooking I try to emulate. Restaurant cooking in China can be a little not overpowering, but like definitely in your face, like very spicy, a lot of chilies.
yeah.
But I found that in people's homes, they eat spicy food, but it's not as oily and it's not as spicy. It's a little more home cooked, and that those are kind of the better meals that I've had.
Yeah.
Restaurant's good, but it's like every once in a while it's good. If you eat that every day, it's a little too much to handle.
Exactly.
So I really appreciated the home cooking there. That's kind of what I try to emulate when I cook. Somewhat of a combination. I like it's fun to get into like more elevated cuisine of the restaurants, but I think especially for an everyday thing, I really like the kind of more home style cooking.
Home style. So with that, are there any like specific dishes that you can think of that were like took a long time or hard to kind of execute? Because I mean, with a lot of that stuff, it's rather. I mean, some of it is very complicated, and it takes like time and practice. Like during COVID, we were trying to make soup dumplings, and they turned out great. But like, I'm like, this is not, not even close to what. I mean, it's a different cuisine, but is there anything like that like you're like, oh, I gotta practice this, and then your wife's like, hey, you nailed it on this one,
Yeah, we change the menu so much. We always kind of have our wontons and noodles as the crowd pleasers, but even our Monday takeout, we always change the menu. And then when I do pop-ups, I always like to throw something new in there. So kind of not necessarily one recipe, but you come back to the certain dish every once in a while, and every time you're like, okay, last time like I think I could have improved in this point.
Yeah, like techniques, right?
Yeah, techniques.
Yeah.
And especially, it's one thing to make a dish for like my wife and I or 4 or 5 people, but to make it for a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
It's you gotta and then like bring that to a pop-up, and you're not gonna have maybe you don't have your big wok, or maybe you have to serve the same thing over 2 hours. You can't just be like stir frying the whole time. You can't wash the pot if you do that. So anyway, so kind of just adapting. Maybe the biggest skill has been adapting recipes to serve at pop-ups, and kind of how
like the workflow kind of.
Yeah, and other things, dumplings. I kind of got the relationship with Hotel SLO.
Mm-hmm.
They called me up a couple of years ago when they were doing the rosé, the slow way. It's like a big fundraiser they do.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to serve some dumplings there.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and I got to prep them in the kitchen. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
But honestly, I hadn't made many dumplings before that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like its own specialty thing in Sichuan, whereas it's not really part of the family style cooking. It's more of like a dumpling shop.
Right.
And I'd done it a few times, but I definitely got kind of forced or pushed into it that way. And then the chef Ryan, awesome guy, he really enjoyed it. And then they were doing another winemaker dinner, and actually the winemaker wife was Chinese, so we had a little bit of Asian influence in there. So I did some dumplings for the dinner for them, and then and that went really well, and they started to put it on the menu at Ox and Anchor. So I started going in there every week and making a couple hundred dumplings.
Oh, you're cranking them out then, man.
Yeah, so I remember in the beginning, I knew how to do it, and I was doing it, but it was a little slow. But now it's like, I got really good at it.
You see those people in those dumpling shops, you're like, oh my gosh, you're so good. And it's like the exact number. Mm-hmm. It's like, I forget what number is, like 24 or whatever, 32 or whatever it is. And they're like that many pleats.
Oh, the pleats, yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh. And they're just not even thinking about it.
Yeah, just muscle memory.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's so cool. I mean, that's so, I mean, for me, it's so cool. Like, seeing that, just people's skill is just like,
yeah, and they do it so nonchalant.
Yeah,
just like
exactly.
Like chatting about the daily life and just like pleating these perfect dumplings.
Yeah, I'm like, I tried out, like, this is terrible, like falling apart and like overstuffed. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster.
Yeah. Well, when you do a couple thousand of something, you get pretty good at it.
Definitely. Well, that's cool, man. So what would you say is like a big misconception, or maybe not big, maybe a small misconception about like Sichuan cuisine in general?
Yeah. So, well, I think it kind of starts with the misconception of Chinese cuisine, which is so big and broad,
Yeah.
and in the United States, it's kind of so simplified, which, regardless of the dishes maybe not being authentic or not, um, I think just the fact that it's so simplified in American cuisine, American Chinese cuisine, that's like the biggest thing that hurts my heart.
Yeah.
When I see like a menu that's like, yeah, it's kind of, the Chinese menus are long, but they're all like the same sauce with 5 different proteins. And in
Oh, I
China,
see.
they don't do that because a particular protein, maybe 2, goes well with a particular sauce. So it's not like Kung Pao pork, chicken, beef, shrimp, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's like it's Kung Pao chicken.
Right.
Sometimes at a fancy restaurant, maybe Kung Pao or Gong Bao shrimp. But so like the simplifiedness of that, and then kind of how they like, you have a restaurant with like Sichuan food, Cantonese food.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the American, way. Everything
Just
all at
thrown
once.
in together. Yeah.
Which is fun, who doesn't like ice cream sundae with 12 flavors? But
Right.
when it comes to Chinese food, it's a little bit of a shame because they're all so intricate and different. They're so complex, each cuisine, and just to kind of throw them all together is a little bit of a disappointment.
Yeah.
So Sichuan food, even in Sichuan, you'll have like a family style restaurant, like a Sichuan family style restaurant, which is kind of like your classic dishes. But a lot of restaurants are like very specialized. So you'll go to like a fish restaurant and they'll serve fish,
Just fish.
or even I went to like a bone marrow restaurant and that's their
That's
specialty.
all they did.
Yeah, I mean they have like a couple other things.
Yeah.
You don't just eat bone marrow all day, but it's like you get a big plate of bones and a straw, and like that's the specialty. Or like hot pot.
Yeah. Right.
So even the restaurants themselves are very specialized because that's what they focus on. That's what they're good at. So to have,
Yeah, it's something
kind
to
of
be
this-
said about like something doing one thing really well too.
yeah, and that's what most restaurants do. And even like the family style restaurants, the menu is quite large and there's a lot of different dishes, but that's it's that style of cooking that they do well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
And then the other thing I would say is
Yeah.
kind of what I mentioned earlier, Sichuan food being very spicy, and it definitely is. I don't want to say it's not, but I think there's kind of this newer push of using like competition between restaurant owners and who can use more chilies and more peppercorn, and that's great and all. But there's also this kind of more older generation of chefs who believe that the chilies and the peppercorn should be more of like enhance the flavor of the food rather than overpower.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of a misconception. Maybe even in China, it getting kind of complicated as what's authentic and what's past and current.
Yeah.
But I think having the peppercorn and the chili just kind of not overpower the food is a misconception. That all Sichuan food is spicy, where it's definitely more about balancing flavors and textures and than kind of overpowering with this mala, in your face.
Yeah. So how has that been like a challenge, being here on the Central Coast? I mean, there's a few, Asian restaurants here and there, but there's not a whole lot of stuff going on. I mean, you have your Thai food that's been here, but like as far as like other kinds of cuisines like that, what has kind of been your challenge trying to get that here? And kind of developed at the local, palate, California palate, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We try to keep authentic flavors without, I'm kind of getting more of the old school, like the peppers and Sichuan peppercorn should more enhance the flavor. We're blessed here with so much fresh produce.
Yeah.
That you don't want to just kind of overpower it with, all you can taste is chilies.
Right.
We kind of have our kind of standard spice level depending on the dish, but usually is kind of like a mild,
Yeah.
The chili sauce we make is pretty mild, and I like that because you really get the flavor of the pepper without all the spice. And we always bring in extra, our own hot pepper if some people really like chili, so if they ask, we'll spice up their dish for them. But in general, occasionally we'll get somebody who wants like no chilies or alls, and I really like to accommodate, so I'll have my own kind of spices. I can whip up a sauce that has no chilies for them, because I want them to appreciate, even if it's not Sichuan food at that point, it's still good and new flavors from China for them.
Right.
And I think so we do a lot of different events, and sometimes when people have to pick out their food or order it, I have to be a little more mindful about what I put on the menu, and things that are recognizable. I really enjoy doing like the dinner parties, because I kind of make the menu, and I can do some things that are familiar for people, but also kind of push their taste buds and experiences. And put some things that they'll try because it's already there. But when you're like, you put 1,000-year eggs on the menu, and people are going to order it, you're like, they're probably not going to order that much of it.
Right.
So I guess from a business standpoint, you have to kind of find this happy medium of pushing people to experience new flavors and ingredients, but also putting it in an approachable way where they're going to order it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's always probably a delicate dance, kind of.
Yeah.
For sure.
And one of the ways I've done it is tried to like, it's a little bit fusion, or maybe just kind of taking the same ingredients and flavors, but presenting it in a different way, or a way that's familiar.
Close. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we've done, especially in the summer, we do a lot of, I call it tofu burrata.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's like
What's
silken tofu.
Okay.
So it's like the very soft tofu, almost like a pudding. And I do it with some tomatoes and just kind of keep with the burrata theme. Sometimes like a little basil, garlic vinaigrette on it. And that, kind of, if I put silken soft tofu on the menu, not many people would order it, but it's like, oh, it's burrata, something that they're familiar with.
Right.
Or like if the 1,000-year egg, I'll do like a little wonton chip with blistered peppers, kind of all chopped up, and then a 1,000-year egg on top, a little section of it. And those flavors are all Sichuan flavors, but maybe you wouldn't really find it on a chip with that presentation. But it's especially for like canapé or like appetizers, it works really well here, and it's the same flavors, so I feel comfortable putting it out like that. Yeah.
So then so you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how hard is it to like source kind of those ingredients that you're using, other than, the peppercorns, but all that other stuff that you're like, can I get it here?
Yeah.
Can I not get it here? Like, I mean, we got that Asian market in SLO, which is great. She's so awesome there.
Yeah.
But how hard is it getting ingredients like that?
So the Sichuan specific ingredients, obviously they come from Sichuan, so I have to I order them. There's a couple websites that I use and get those, like the peppercorn and the Sichuan chili bean paste, and then so those kind of ingredients I order online, but I really try to use a lot of local ingredients we have here. So and that's another way. Zucchini is not like the biggest vegetable in China. You can find it in Sichuan, but I use a lot of that in season here, or I try to use the local produce, but with kind of Sichuan flavors. And my happiest moments are when I find like a vegetable that's very popular in Sichuan and also grown here.
Oh yeah.
Or ingredient even. So like one of my favorite things is the jujubes. Those little
candies.
No, not the candies.
Okay.
I get that a lot though. So it's called like the Chinese date or red date.
Okay.
And it's this little fruit. It's actually in the same family as rose, so it's not a date palm, but it looks like a date when it's all dried up, and it's very sweet like a date. But it's been grown in China for millennia. Very medicinal, often in soups, or sometimes people snack on it. But it's grown here at New Koyama. There's a cool farmer.
Okay.
Alicia, she has a honey brand called Rockfront Ranch, and that's the name of her ranch. But she also has a jujube brand called Just Jujubes, and they sell it at Whole Foods and the co-op. You can find it.
A SLO co-op.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
In little packs, but I love using those because it's very adaptable to the climate. It's drought tolerant, and it's also very Chinese.
But it's grown here.
And it's locally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like the trifecta of all of the wonderful things.
How happy were you when you found that? You're like,
I was-
yes.
Yeah, it's so cool. So I try to include that whenever I can in the menus. Yeah, and then it's fun to kind of, as a chef, be able to take the local produce and figure out how to fit it into the Sichuan menu, Sichuan cuisine, which has been fun. And occasionally, maybe by request or just by my interest, I like to go to Debu in Pismo.
Okay.
A little Filipino Asian market.
Yeah, I've been there.
Every Friday they have a little fresh veggie market, and they'll have like loofah gourd and bottle gourds and the Asian eggplants, and so sometimes I'll buy some of that stuff, but I'm not sure exactly where it comes from. It's not exactly local, so I try to buy more local produce. But
I mean the Asian markets in SLO has quite a bit of stuff too that I've been finding. So,
and the other kind of biggest accomplishment I feel like I have so far is taking some vegetables, seeds from Asia, from Sichuan, and there's people who produce them in the United States, seed producers, so I buy them from here, but have some local farmers grow it for us. So my favorite is in Chinese in Sichuan it's called wosun, and in English it's called celtis, and it's kind of a cross between celery and lettuce, at least by name. So it grows. It looks like a lettuce. It's got all these leaves on it, and then as it starts to mature, the stalk gets pretty thick, and it's this big old stocky lettuce. You can pick the leaves and eat them; they're really good. But the prize is the stalk, and when it's pretty thick before it goes to seed, you harvest it, you cut it, and you peel the kind of the skin off, and you're left with this really crispy, like kind of slightly sweet, almost like celery. Tastes a little bit like celery.
The same texture.
Texture without the stringiness.
Okay.
It's almost like a broccoli stem if you were to peel the stem.
Okay.
But it's a little, and they're all the same family. So it's it's really tasty. It's good in salads, like a julienne and mixed with a dressing or stir fried. It's super common in Sichuan, and having it be able. We're working with Aviator Acres, which is a farm connected with the city farm plots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So to have that first, I don't think anybody grows that organically that I know of in California, and to have that locally is pretty cool. And
cool.
We use that whenever he has it available.
Huh.
Yeah.
So how do you work? So that's kind of gets into like. So are you asking these farmers like to do this, or like how do you get in contact and be like, hey, or you're just finding them and they're already doing it?
No, we just Nathan, the farmer from Aviator Acres.
Yeah.
We were both at an Edible SLO event. They were featured in the magazine. We were also in that magazine. We just connected there, and he's like, yeah. He actually went to China a lot with his previous job and working with nut processing plants, and so he just said, if there's anything that you want me to try to grow for you, let me know.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, cool.
And you're like, well, I have this long list actually.
Yeah. And he does his best. He does great. The Celtis, it's anytime you're growing a new crop, you kind of have to go through a couple seasons to kind of figure out how it's going to work in your climate. And there's a lot of different varieties too. So, but yeah, he's been doing great with that. We tried to grow some long beans. He's grown some red beans for me. Yeah. So we just kind of meet with him. The city farms also, I gave them a list this year too of things that'd be fun to grow.
Oh, nice. And they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like they're not gonna buy everything and try it, but they'll look to see what would work with what they've got going on. And
so do they have to pull that from China, or is there seeds here grown locally?
Yeah, there's a cool Japanese company or originally Japanese-owned Kitazawa. They've got a lot of good seeds, Asian seeds. And then Baker Creek is another cool one. They're somewhere in the Midwest, but yeah, there's a lot of nurseries in the United States that have a lot of these veggies
that they could start from.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So as far as ingredients, like on your website, you said like they're cut in the same shape, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're kind of like designed to be kind of work together with the same shape of something else, and kind of. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm butchering it, but
no, it's all right. Yeah. So texture is super important in Chinese cuisine. Sometimes there's even a food that the flavor isn't really that interesting, but the texture is super interesting.
Yeah.
So like this 口感 in Chinese is mouthfeel. So
Yeah.
it's very important. And so the typically a dish, especially like a stir-fried dish, will have all of the same shape of ingredient in the dish. So, usually any given dish will have like 2 or 3 main ingredients, and they'll all be cut the same way. I think one, because in cooking, in wok cooking, you want things cook quickly, and you want them to cook be all ready at the same time. But also the mouthfeel, so it kind of changes the sensation of the food when you're eating it when it's cut a different way. So and when you're ordering or cooking, planning a menu or ordering a menu, you kind of want to keep that in mind. You don't want like everything the same shape. You kind of want to have variety in that. So kind of the best example I can give, it's most familiar with people here. So kung pao chicken.
Yeah.
In Chinese, it's gong bao ji ding. And gong bao, which we kind of say kung pao, is the name, it was the title of this emperor who came, or a high government official who came through Sichuan, and kind of with his group of chefs, they kind of developed what we call kung pao chicken. So that's what he got the name on the dish for it. So gong bao, and then ji ding. Ji means chicken, and ding means cubed.
Okay.
So the chicken's cubed, and there's peanuts, which are kind of in this cube-like shape, and then usually there's like a celery or some other vegetable in there, which is also cubed. So the name cubed is, or the shape of the ingredient is in the dish. We just say kung pao chicken, and gong bao ji ding. Ji ding kind of sounds like chicken, so it works well. But really, the ding is quite important there. And then also a lot of dishes, it's hard to think of another one that's common in English, but like what I have on the menu this Monday is a yu xiang rou si. Yu xiang is one of the 23 sauces of Sichuan. It's one of my favorite. Actually, literally means fish fragrant, but has nothing to do with fish. Other than that, the smell of the sauce kind of reminds Sichuan people of fish, which is kind of hard to explain.
Okay.
But it's just how it is.
Yeah. No. That's all good.
And different noses.
Yeah.
But and then so rou is meat, which kind of by default in China means pork.
Okay.
Unless it's otherwise specified. And then si, so yu xiang rou si means kind of slivered or julienne, something like that. Maybe a little thicker than julienne. And that's, the dish, everything in that dish, the meat and usually some peppers or whatever, some muar, the woodier mushrooms, they're all slivered. So you kind of, like that's just an example of how most dishes are often in the dish's title would be the shape of the ingredient.
Oh, so they tell you the shape of the ingredients by the name.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be like, oh, this restaurant has kung pao chicken slivers. Like they're always the same. The dish itself, maybe it's the way of the sauce, or like there's some reason why they cut the ingredients that shape for this dish. So it's not like you can have different shapes for the same dish usually.
Yeah. Right. And for equal cooking, right? Equal cooking time too.
Yeah.
On top of that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into so you offer classes, correct?
Yeah.
And then you also have pop-ups. So like let's just get in briefly about the classes you offer, because that sounds amazing. I think you have a noodle one coming up, right?
Yeah, I just did it on
you
Wednesday.
just did it. Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so we do a lot. Classes, pop-ups, private dinner parties.
Yeah.
We've done pop-ups with the school, the SLO and Morro Bay High School, the San Luis Coastal School District. I go there every couple of months, and we do a recipe for the
kids or something.
Yeah, the school lunch program.
Oh, nice.
We just kind of a yes man. Anybody who has like an idea, like, oh, that sounds great, let's do it. And I feel honored to be kind of this kind of Sichuan ambassador. Sometimes I feel like, they've spent so much time creating this amazing cuisine, and I'm just kind of like showing it.
Yeah.
I feel like, sure, sometimes I can be a little creative. Maybe that's cool, but I feel like I'm just kind of showing this thing that's really cool.
Yeah.
And getting some credit for it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, we do classes. The most common class we do is a dumpling class. We do private, but usually it's a public class. Private, obviously, upon request. And then but we'll work with a couple venues here, like Saint Sparrow Wine Bar or Shindig Cider.
Okay.
We used to do some at Hotel SLO. And yeah, just kind of post when the class is happening.
Yeah.
Usually comes with a beverage because it's at a beverage place.
Right.
And the dumpling class has kind of been the number one that we've done, just because it's kind of easy. I can bring the ingredients. We don't need a real kitchen to do it. But they're really fun. I love seeing people bond over dumplings, making them together.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to kind of clarify, like, I think we have this word dumpling, and it means so many things.
Yeah.
And there's so many words in Chinese or even different cultures, and then we just translate them to dumpling.
Right.
So it's like 10 different things that we just call one. So it's kind of specified, like a pot sticker is like a pan-fried dumpling.
Right.
And a wonton is a dumpling, but usually it's smaller and usually boiled, where you can have, what we call dumpling in Chinese, like jiaozi, and Japanese gyoza.
Yeah.
Which is kind of more traditional steamed dumpling.
Yeah.
So anyway, kind of explaining all that, and then letting people fold the dumplings and make their own, and then we steam them for them right there, and then they get to eat their own dumplings, and I got a little toppings bar.
Nice. That
And,
sounds awesome.
Yeah, people love it. They make a ton. They give them to-go boxes. They take it home, so you get kind of dinner and the experience.
Nice.
And then we just did our first noodle making class.
Yeah, that sounds cool too.
Yeah, I was trying to think of new classes. I did one bao bun class, which was fun. But
Oh yeah.
without the kitchen, and you have like 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
You need like 15 or 20 cutting boards, and it's a lot of materials. So we did it at Saint Sparrow, so we just had them save a bunch of wine bottles for us, and I washed them, empty wine bottles, and then those were our rolling pins.
Oh, cool.
For the noodles, there's many kinds of ways of making noodles. We just kind of did one where you roll out the dough, put a little flour and fold it over, and then cut the noodle, and then you can kind of pull each one. And then just there's a lot of thinking through the whole process of like what people need, make sure it like lasts long enough, right?
Yeah.
Like dumplings are great because they make 25 and it takes half hour more.
Right.
But like the bao buns, how many bao buns are they going to make and have them steam, and then it's a yeasted dough, so you have to use it at the right time.
Yeah.
So
A little complicated.
yeah,
A little
so-
more complicated.
yeah, but the noodle class went really well. We'll definitely do another one.
Nice.
People had good reviews, and it went really smoothly.
And people, so you put all that on your social media, like Instagram or something, or like how can people find out? Well, like whatever stuff you have coming up.
Yeah, so Instagram, we always post about it.
Okay, cool.
Put it in our post and also story as it gets closer. We have a website, SichuanKitchenSLO.com, and we've got a list of events to keep about a month out. You can see what we're doing.
See what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah. And then, we do pop-ups, different places. So every Monday we do our own takeout out of a commissary kitchen. Used to be called Benny's Kitchen. Now it's Mindful Kitchen Collective. But it's right there on Foothill.
Oh, it's not okay.
Slow.
And slow. Okay.
Yeah, Foothill, Santa Rosa, just about next to Charlie's Place, Kona Deli.
Got it. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we do a takeout out of there every Monday and change the menu every week. We always have a salad that changes. We do our wontons and noodles that stay the same, and then I do a veggie dish and a meat dish, and we got rice and combo. It's more. We got the whole kitchen there, so we can do more stuff. And then and pre-orders are recommended up till Sunday midnight.
Okay.
I put the menu up every Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
The weekend, but we take a lot of walk-ins too.
Nice.
And especially noodles and wontons, we don't run out of those normally. But
Oh, okay.
Some of the other dishes, if we only had 5 orders, and then I only make a few extra.
Yeah. Okay. And then you said, are you still over at Hotel SLO every once in a while?
Every
too?
Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah. So every Tuesday we do a pop-up on the rooftop. So the menu, I get to prep in the beautiful box and anchor
that kitchen's
kitchen, which is
ridiculous.
amazing. But when I go upstairs, I only have like 2 induction burners to cook off of. So the menu's a little more limited, but I do 5 different items every week, always wontons and noodles, and then try to do like a salad. Sometimes I'll throw some Nepali food up there too.
Oh, nice.
Just to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
We did one for the Nepali kind of Indian New Year's. They're all slightly different dates, but all are in the same week.
Yeah.
So we did a big old like Nepali themed menu that week. That was a lot of fun, and got a lot of good feedback. So I try to
People liked it then.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, throw some things in there, even on Tuesdays, and then I've been making my own noodles every Tuesday, which is fun. Normally for the pop-ups, because of the volume, it's hard to make. So I get from Eto.
Yep.
Yeah, some fresh pasta noodles from them. But Tuesday I make my own noodles. It's fun.
Nice.
And then we do another main dish, usually a meat dish or some sort of whatever has inspired me the week before to do that week.
Yes, okay, so what inspires you to kind of make new dishes? Are you looking at stuff like on the internet, or are you traveling a little bit, or you're like, is your wife like, hey, I want this, like, can you make that for me?
All of the above. All
right?
of it. So I'm always looking for inspiration, whether it's somebody who's like, hey, I loved that dish you did last month, can you do it again? Or my wife's like, oh, I really want to eat swan lafen, which is like a spicy sour sweet potato noodle soup thing. So whatever it is, or there's maybe it's an ingredient. Often there's an ingredient that's in season that inspires me. I always like some sort of constraint. It's hard for me sometimes to just think of something out of the blue.
Yeah.
So if there's like, there's a lot of zucchini right now, or there's a lot of this, or then like, okay, what can I do with it? And then that kind of inspires me. Or just something I saw. A lot of my Instagram is like crazy cooking from China, and like, oh, that sounds cool. I think I can do that here. There's also, you mentioned your question, the chefs that inspired me.
Yeah.
There's one really amazing woman from the UK called Fushia Dunlop.
Okay.
And she was like one of the first women foreigners to study in the Culinary Institute in Sichuan.
Okay.
In like the 1980s, I believe she was there. And she studied in the Culinary Cuisine Institute in Sichuan, and then she just kind of spent the rest of her life researching and sharing Sichuan and Chinese food with the West. So she's kind of like the number one resource of authentic Chinese Sichuan food for the West. And it's made it very approachable but authentic way. So I have a couple of her books, which I look at and
get some inspiration from that.
Yeah, and a lot of it's like, oh yeah, I remember eating this in China, and it just kind of jogs your memory. Or sometimes it's in a way where it's a little more applicable to what we have here. And there's also one of my favorite kind of YouTube chefs is Wang Gang.
Okay.
That's his name. He's kind of sometimes people heard about him from here. He's just a Sichuan chef. He's got a cool recipe kind of YouTube channel, and he's like, sometimes when I want to look up a recipe, I don't really care about the chef's grandmother's history. I just want to know. And he's like very
You're like at the very bottom.
He's like very to the point.
Yeah.
He's like, hey everybody, today we're making this, and let's go. And it's like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And he has a lot in English too. My Chinese is good enough where I can understand what he's saying for those recipes too. So sometimes if I have an idea of what to make, I'll see if he's got an instruction just to kind of refresh me, or see. He's got a lot of restaurant background, so he talks about how they do it in the restaurants, which is cool too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, what I learned was just watching home cooks or
Right.
or just eating and trying and cooking myself. So it's good to have that as a reference too.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I see also you're on Harvestly too, right?
Yeah.
So what can you get off of that as well? Because we just had Taryn on it too. So
Yeah. So right now we offer chicken wontons, dan noodles. I do like this snacking peanuts, which we mix our chili sauce in with a little bit extra peppercorn. Those are really fun, addicting. And mapo tofu we have on there every week, and that's and the chili sauce.
Chili sauce. Yeah. And they'll bring that all to your door if you order it.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
So order by Wednesday midnight, and then we have Thursday and Friday morning to prepare it, and we deliver on Friday, and it goes right to we deliver to their location, and they deliver it to the house.
Yeah, which is awesome. All right, man. Anything else you want to add? We'll plug all your stuff, but anything else you want to add to people listening out there? where they can find you and all the classes and like all the crazy stuff you're doing.
Yeah, our website, our Instagram, follow that. It's always good. We try to do our best to keep it up.
So what is that?
Videos.
Is Sichuan Kitchen SLO or?
Yeah. Sichuan Sichuan
Okay.
Kitchen SLO. Yeah, we're super happy to be able to bring some good Sichuan food to the area.
I'm excited. I need to come take a class. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, we're up here in North County quite often at pop-ups. We do a lot of J. Ducey.
Oh, okay.
Different places. We've done a couple of dinners at Eto.
Oh, nice.
We'll plan another one of those soon. We're just we're all over. We try to spread the
Bouncing
love.
around, huh?
Yeah.
You're in the schools. You're in Harvestley. You're doing Hotel SLO.
Thanks for having me out here.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for saying yes. I mean, coming down.
I love talking about this kind of stuff. I could, could have been 3 hours if we had it.
We could totally do it. I mean,
yeah, or maybe round two.
Yeah, we will definitely
another time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just really happy to be here. We've had a lot of support, with all the chefs, Hotel SLO, Harvestley. All these people have given us a good opportunity. Really, really appreciate.
Yeah.
All that, and it's been fun to do it in this community who's been really supportive. I think we offer something new and different. We also try to support a lot of local farmers and things like that. So it's been fun, and really, really happy to be able to share the cuisine.
Sweet, man. So yeah, go out there and go support Garrett and take some noodle making classes and see him on Mondays and Tuesdays somewhere in SLO,
Yeah.
Get some noodles.
Yeah.
But all right, man, let's wrap this up.
Cool.